Hearing none. Yes, please. Grab the door.
Roll over.
Okay, so, just like the old-time movies, we're doing a double knot feature today. Brian did a bass, but this presentation was originally supposed to be a bass, but since Gary's not here, that's what we're getting. So, this won't take that long. Script logging and troubleshooting. One of the things that came up a while back was I was doing some magic for somebody as part of a different demo, and they said, "Oh, that's cool. How do you make it do that?" So here we go. So, debug. Everybody, how do you see what the shell is actually doing real time? Well, everybody knows you start the shell with, yes, that does, highlighting on the screen does not work. With bin bash at the top of the file.
Move your mouse over there. Use a pointer. There you go.
And then it's set-x. Debug writes to standard error, and I should have put the next slide before this one, but basically that's how you can redirect it to, this is how you can redirect it to a file. We'll get to that in a minute. I'm going to do some demos here, so bear with me. It always seems opposite to me. Set -x turns on debugging, and set +x turns it off. It's because it's a bash option. So when you set an option, anyway, it's historical reasons. It can be used multiple times in the same file. So if you've got a shell script and you just want to see what a certain section of it's doing, you can put the set-x right before that section and a set-+x after that section, so you don't just get a bunch of stuff you don't care about.
Is X a flag in that case?
Yes.
So for any command, can I change the defaults by putting plus? Like if the J flag is a default, can I go +J and turn that default off?
Usually that would be like no J, but check the man page. A lot of them will be minus, no, minus, whatever the original flag was, the default flag. I don't want to go past there. Okay, so I'm going to swing over here to this. So, there we go. Okay, so here's, get it over here and then bring it. Okay, so here's an actual honest-to-goodness script. And basically, it does a bunch of stuff, and this all works, so I don't have it normally commented. Or normally, I leave the set-x commented out, but for the sake of this discussion, I set some variables, I do some calls, I process some stuff. So if we run this with set-x set at the top of the script, we get something like this. And I'll wait for it to finish before I go too far because I didn't want it jumping around. We see that, notice over here we have, some of these lines have 1 plus at the beginning, and some lines have 2 pluses at the beginning. And, okay, that's about all there is here, but that's basically the depth of the shell. So if you have pipes and all that, if we go back and look at the script, you'd see where when you're piping things together, you're going to get more pluses, so that tells you how many layers of shell you are deep. So a lot of this is pretty straightforward. We're going to set some variables, and then here's where I'm doing this. Well, this playlist variable is set up here, and then it comes out down here. So I'll bet you if I looked at my code, that says $playlist. But how do I make sure that it's actually getting populated right? Especially if I'm building a variable. This is a good way to see. You don't want to have to put a bunch of echoes in your file and spit a bunch of stuff out and then have to remember to take all that stuff out later. And especially if you're in a source control system like Git or something, you don't want a bunch of garbage cluttering up the changelog. Well, the nice thing is you can have that one line at the top, set-x, and just flip that, comment it out or not, and then you can get this output when you need it, and not when you don't. So yeah, this is basically what set-x gives you. Now, obviously, this is a very small script. It goes and gets some stuff from YouTube, looks at the list of links in it, and then decides if I've already got it or not. But this is a very simple example, but you can see that for all of a couple of dozen lines of code, 35 lines of code, I've filled up my whole screen with stuff. So, what if I don't want to have to look at it real time? What if I want to be able to go back and look at it later? So that's where we'll come back over to the slide deck. And I'm going to skip by that slide and logging to mail. So, a couple of options. You can log to a file, or what I like to do is log to mail. Really handy if you're working remotely and you want a log of things. You're not even necessarily for debugging purposes, but you just want...
Assuming your email is configured and working.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yes. Yes.
That's a lot of
Who
assumptions.
doesn't have a working email?
Yeah, make
No,
sure...
on this machine, it could be out in the boonies that
Yeah.
you've never tested the email config.
Yeah.
Minimum
This doesn't
configuration.
work if your mail doesn't... Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't try to mail yourself something if your mail on the machine doesn't work. Thanks, Lee.
Step one, configure email.
Yeah. So it's pretty simple. You know, just pipe it to mail, and the problem is that will capture standard out, but not standard error. So you need a trick to get both of them. You keep, because of the way Bash processes the groupings and parses the command, you can't redirect. If you redirect standard out to a pipe, you can't then redirect standard error. So you have to redirect them both to a file and then just send yourself 2 emails later.
Or you can concatenate and send them.
Yeah. But this example shows you which was which. Yeah. Of course, there's plenty of variations here. This is all a very basic demo. So let's do something like that real quick. Let's come over to this machine here. And I'll do something like cat etsy hosts, right? That's going to work. That's my host file. It really doesn't matter what's in it. Worldwide is. So really doesn't matter what's in it. I just want some data. Okay, so then I'm going to do something like mail-x. This. So mail it to myself. And yes, I know mail on this machine works. And then we'll come over to my mail client. Right here. And yes, you can't read it, but that's the email I just got with the contents of standard out. Because I catted it with a single pipe. So now, let's say I want some debug output. So, if I do something like cat this, that's going to give me an error. I already know that. So, I'm going to do something like this. Cat etsy hosts and /ASDF, just because I need a file that fails as well, into std out and standard error into stderr. So nothing comes up on the screen, which is what everybody I hope should expect, because I've redirected both standard out and standard error to that. Now, avoiding the mail and bouncing back and forth, if I look at standard out, you'll see that that has the contents of Etsy hosts in it. But if I cat standard error, you'll see I got the message from Cat saying that, hey, that file didn't exist. So now, of course, if I just mailed myself those files with some appropriate subject lines, much like that, then I'd have two separate files, one that showed me the good stuff and one that showed me the bad stuff.
And if you want to do it as a cron job, throw them in temp so you know where they are.
Yes. Yeah. And use temp slash, if you're using cron, use $, which is the PID of the process, so that they don't step on each other. Probably a good point there. I could have probably found some time there, but come back over here. So now I'm going to go back here. I've been talking about standard out and standard error. Well, what are they? In Unix, everything essentially is a file. So you have file descriptor 0, which is standard in, which we don't need to talk about. But then standard out is file descriptor 1. Also can be directly addressed with and 1 here. And you'll see why that comes in handy later. And standard error is file descriptor 2. That's just the way it is. It's always been that way, and as long as the guy that wrote System D doesn't get his hands on it, that's the way it will always be. And here's...
Are you disparaging System G?
Not any more than is necessary. Which seems to be a lot. This example down at the bottom is what I already did back over here, right there.
Yeah.
Some command redirects a standard out to standard error. So that's the same as... Click here. There we go. That's the same as that example. And if you have a single redirect by itself, that's standard out. That's just convention in Bash because most people just need standard out most of the time. So that's standard out and standard error. But let's just...
I thought there was a way you could, in Bash, direct both to the same file. Like,
Yeah, there is.
Yeah, that's...
Tell us I can't remember the...
No, I wasn't... I was going to avoid that, but since we're getting to the
yeah,
201...
it's like 2 ampersand 1, right?
It's so something like, let's do 2 into and 1.
There it is, okay.
So you're taking the standard out and redirecting it into the standard error and redirecting it into the same file descriptor as standard out, and then I can do something like both out, and then it didn't work because that shouldn't have shown up here.
Because ASDF doesn't exist. Did Etsy host get
So what's in both out?
cat both out?
You need to do the both out first before you do the...
Oh, you're right. Thank you. Yeah, no, and actually, or did I just have... Let's find out.
Or is it that?
No, it's
Well,
not
the
that.
SDF is what's missing.
No, Brian, I think Brian's on the right track here, and it's this. There you go.
Oh,
You need the redirect from... you need the redirect to the file before you redirect the
Standard error.
standard error, because otherwise the
You're
order
sending
it
somewhere else.
the order it gets hijacked in matters.
Mhm.
So now if I cap both out, we'll see that we get the output of the file,
And the
and
error
then
message.
at the bottom you have the output of the error message.
The other thing to keep in mind...
Now, if hold on one
is if you're using this on something like a C program, your standard out is almost certainly going to be buffered, where standard error rarely is. So they're not going to come out in the order you always think they will.
That's what I'm about. Yeah. So here we have Etsy hosts, ASDF, and Etsy hosts again. We'll run that, and then we'll look at it and notice that, yeah, it's your cat is buried up here in the middle of your output. Now, maybe that's what you want, but that's probably not what you want. And that's why you rarely...
Show the command line for that.
Well, it's the same... that's why while useful occasionally, is rarely what you want. You rarely want them to go to the same file. You more often want them to go to two separate files so that you can know which stuff was in which file descriptor.
Yeah.
Which brings us to another point about logging, and that is, wrong window, right here, a separate log. So you can have many file descriptors. The trick here is you exec and give it a number greater than 2, and you can reuse the same one later if you want to change where that descriptor goes, which could be useful if where it's going is a variable that you want to update later. But let's say I just want to write a separate log for some reason. Just a very high level, hey, this script got called on this date at this time or something like that. So exec 3, redirect to my log. There cannot be any spaces in that. That has to be next to each other, or it gets confused.
So you can't use quotes on it.
Pardon?
You can't use quotes on it.
You can use quotes, but there can't be any white space.
Okay.
And so if you wrap it in quotes, then that's not actually white space. Even though it's white, it's not space. And then this is just a simple example of how you would then write to that file. Just redirect to ampersand 3. So that's file descriptor 3. Well, you already told the bash where to send file descriptor 3. So we'll do a quick little demo on that. Find the right window. Here we go. Clear this. Okay, so let's exec 3 into my log. Go. And there we go. So, you could have, if you have a really complex script, you could have 3 or 4 different log files of varying verbosity. You know, one that just says, hey, I started at this date and time. One that says, okay, I'm doing step 1, now I'm doing step 2, now I'm doing step 3. All the while, you can be doing something else with standard out or standard error. You always want to be careful utilizing standard out because lots of things try to eat standard out. That makes it, you can't use standard out if you're trying to use pipes, for example. It makes it very hard. Andrew looks like he's got a question.
What's the benefit in giving it a named file descriptor number? Like, why not just direct it to my log?
Well, the number, this file descriptor number, let's see.
Well, you can't refer to a file by name. You have to refer to a file by number in Bash.
The descriptor.
No, he's saying why not just echo hello Gary into my log?
Mm-hmm.
Because you only do it, well, you'd have to use append on the second ones after the first one to create the file.
There are the difference is that if we were to go further down the line of really advanced file descriptor handling and all that is a stream, not a file. So if you need
the same syntax,
if
same syntax will append to that log instead of overriding it.
Yes.
The greater than ampersand 3 is writing to a stream.
Yes.
So everything you write to greater than ampersand 3.
Yeah. So let's do that. Let's do this. Wow. Let's fix that.
And say hell, Andrew.
So
Why are you
let's
asking
do
so
that
many questions?
and 3, okay? And now let's cap my log, and you'll see that they're both there, okay? But now let's do echo hello Gary, and this into my log 2.
And then,
Okay? So different file. Okay? Now, I'm going to echo hello Andrew into my log 2.
And it overwrites it, yeah.
And now if I cat my log 2, we have just hello Andrew. So notice that
Can you use concatenate in like that, in that syntax?
You-
Isn't there like 2 of those?
there
Yeah,
is.
pen,
There is. But you don't have to.
Okay.
That's
It's just
Don's
too late
point.
to
You
say.
don't have to. But the other issue is you can do neat things like if you have a program, I don't have anything handy to demonstrate, but if you have a program that only will read from standard in or only write to standard out, lots of very basic programs don't have file handling logic in them. They just handle a stream coming in and a stream going out. You can exec file handles and then replace standard error or standard in or standard out with that file handle. And let bash do your redirecting for you.
But I see-
A good example of that is virtually every Linux command that you use on a command line.
Mhm.
This all works on every one of those commands, and every one of those commands, I'm not aware of any that have built-in file handling, do they?
Yeah, this is the
Some of them
Unix
do.
paradigm. This
Yeah.
is how Unix works.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, we have the same character being used in 2 different contexts for 2 different meanings. The greater than really having 2 different meanings. If it's greater than ampersand, that's different from
Well,
greater than a
No,
file.
no, it's greater than, it's ampersand 3 or my log. It's
Mhm.
not greater than ampersand, it's greater
Ampersand
than.
3 is a stream, not a file,
Exactly.
or not a.
It's, yes, exactly, it's a
It's
stream,
different.
not a
It's
file.
a different kind of file. A stream is a file, but it's a different
Yeah.
kind of file from the thing.
Not
that's
a,
in
not
it.
a disk file, yeah,
Right.
You can also read from different streams too.
Right.
So,
yeah,
Read, right, yeah. Uh-huh.
yeah. Yeah,
Correct.
there's lots of there's lots of examples, but at this point they're all kind of esoteric, and you'll need to do this when you've run out of file handles with just standard out and standard in, and go, gee, if I really had another handle over here, I could do what I want, and then
Or if you'd written it differently, maybe you could do it with just the the 3 standard handles. Sometimes just writing it differently fixes that too.
there we go. So I had to fix the right syntax. But notice how I've now exec 4 into file descriptor 3. And then I echoed try 4 into file descriptor 4. Notice I never told file descriptor 4 what file to write into. But because up here we exec 3 into a file, down here, after I ran this, when I cap my log, I get what I put in file descriptor 4, also in file descriptor 3, also in there. So,
Now you can still write to file descriptor 3.
yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, let's do this. Echo.
So some messages will go to file descriptor 4 and some to file descriptor 3.
By
Is there
anything going to
anything
fire
in the
dis-
Is there anything in the metadata of my log now that says the try4 came from file
No.
descriptor 4?
No, there's really no metadata to speak of in terms of that.
If you need something like that, you'll have to put it into your message.
Yeah. So the benefit here is if you want to say have 3 or 4 different levels of logging, you can log to file descriptors 3 and 4 and 5 and 6, and then you can redirect them all together if you don't care. Or you can leave them all separate if you do care.
Yeah.
Is that how the verbosity flag gets to be changed? You can set verbosity to be 3 and We're only gonna file descriptors
No,
one,
because
two,
No.
three,
that all
four,
goes
and
to,
five.
when you see that all goes to standard out.
Okay.
Almost always, yeah. Yeah,
Probably
this
sometimes goes to standard error.
I'd have to spend a while to find some really concrete useful scripts where this function is actually useful, other than a cute little demonstration here. But to the benefit of doing this is you can have this at the top of your file, and then you know where everything's going, and you never forget. You do this, you never forget to do a double redirect and accidentally wipe everything out. Because
Yeah,
you
that's a
need,
good point.
yeah.
And as you mentioned before, the order of you don't have interleaved data. with
Right.
this.
Yeah. You can interleave the data back together, like here where we
Well,
exec 4 into 3.
when you choose.
But yeah, but you have more control over it this way. And there's all sorts of fun stuff you can do with reading from. You can just like we're redirecting into ampersand 3, you can redirect from ampersand 3 to read from a file if it really made sense.
You mean send 3 to somewhere else?
No, like
You could write into 3, and then further down your program, you can read from 3.
okay, so let's do this. Let's I got a file. Let me log out of here real quick and duplicate this. I'm going to try this on the fly because we've got a bunch of time. So let's children, animals, and chalk. Things you should never do live demos with. All right. So in Slug, I've got here. We'll look at my log. Right, so that's got a couple of things in it, right? So I've got a new shell here because I just started a new putty session. So exec 4 from my log. Well, read line do echo. This is going to fail. Can anybody tell me why?
You have less than instead of greater than?
No. I want to read from 4. But the echo is going to fail. It's not going to show anything. It's going to show... Well, can somebody tell me what it's going to show? Anybody want to take any guesses what the echo is going to... What's going to happen when I run this command?
I don't know what the capital X's do.
It's just X's. It's just to show that this is a line.
Well, you're reading a line, you're echoing XXX.
No, I'm echoing... Read that the echo carefully.
It's bash name quotes.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, $line XX.
So what's going to happen when I run this?
You're gonna look for the variable $line XX.
What am I gonna get for an output?
An error.
XX.
How many times?
1, 2, 3, 4.
Every time you read the line.
Exactly. So if we run this, there we go.
Oh,
Now,
Put a space in there.
well, or
well,
even better,
yeah, curlies.
curlies. I ate all of. Here's an interesting catch. I already ate
Oh, you already
everything.
ate 4. Okay.
I already ate everything from file descriptor 4. So now I can exec 4 again, and then, hey, there we go. Andrew, did you follow that?
I think so.
So because it's a stream, we ran through the file once, and then we were done. We ran out of the file. So I had to exec 4 from my log again to read my log into that
Right.
file descriptor.
Another way to think of it, a stream is a memory, is a data in memory. You know, if you kill your session or if you read the stream, it's gone. whereas a file is permanently on the disk until you do something to it.
So, yeah. So, in terms of the header of this, say, remember the abstract was, how do I convince the computer that it was wrong? This is how. You wrap your variables in curly braces in Bash. The curly braces denote the name of the variable. This is useful in cases where you, for example, need $line immediately followed by the letters XX. Obviously a contrived example, but if you need a variable and you can't afford to put a space after the name, then wrap it in curly braces, and there you go.
Cool.
So now if I run this again, what happens?
It's empty.
If you substitute double quotes for the curly braces, what would happen?
No. I don't think.
You could put a, well, you could put a
Well,
space.
hold on. It.
You need to put it around the,
Load it first.
Well, load exec first, yeah. Oh, apparently you can.
well,
But double quotes are a bad idea because double quotes have lots of other meanings.
Yeah.
So wait a
yeah,
minute.
well, and you didn't get your variables, so
Yeah.
put the first
Yeah.
quote before the $sign. And
Yeah,
Yeah.
so first quote and the $sign.
That's better.
Yeah.
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 That works logically.
Curly's
Yeah.
are more visible because you can tell which one's left and which one's right.
Yeah.
Well, not only that, it's not also it's not a common character that you generally use
Right.
in forming strings.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, quotes are.
Well, they're not inside the string usually. They're outside the string. So this works, but if I had to do something like that for some reason, then you've got. See, that probably works if I had to guess. Yeah, that again, contrived examples and live demos, but the idea that's horrible. Don't do that. Don't do that. That's a horrible syntax just because it works.
I'm sure you could do it worse.
well, in
I'm
there,
sure. Let's get the backslashes out. About
Yeah,
4 or 5 deep.
backslash.
Yeah.
Let's get some backslashes.
Yeah, we'll have 4 or 5 deep, but yeah, Brian.
I was going to say there really the double X's are what's quoted,
Yeah,
and then the $line
That's clearly a variable.
is not quoted,
It
unlike
doesn't-
the previous one where we're quoting
And
the
the quote
$line.
separates
Yeah.
it from the $line.
Yeah,
yeah.
So
It's like
this
putting a
is
space after.
this is why you want. Let's exact first. That's why you want that syntax.
Mhm.
Because I could wrap the whole thing here in double quotes, which I should do,
Really, yes.
and it still works. Because if I was going to build another variable, let's go up. Speaking of set, there's another handy one.
Yes, I love that one.
There we go. Okay. Oh, damn it.
Nano?
Yeah, exactly.
Computer talk.
I hate Nano.
Yeah, well, this will do for, no pun intended there, this will do for my point. So, yes, this is going to take a while I remember how to use Nano. So if I wanted to do something like, in order to assign to build that variable, I have to wrap the whole string that I want in double quotes. So, rather than having to worry about escaping in quotes and all that, this is where it really shines, compared to, for example, wrapping the X's in double quotes. Because now I can just come down here and do something like that. course, because I didn't load it first. Now I can run that though. But that's it. And then that still works. But we built a variable using dollar curly line curly. Yes.
Why didn't you get double there?
Why would I?
Because you loaded it once, you loaded it again in the script.
No, I didn't.
This is the script.
Yeah, there is no script.
Ah, never mind. Yeah, it's input there, it's output there, never mind.
So I'm setting a variable called new, which is that string, and then I'm just printing $new later. So, well, building strings using that $curly notation is very handy when you're trying to build strings, and yeah, and then you can build strings a piece at a time and all sorts of fun stuff. But yeah, using a file descriptor for here, really a contrived example, because I could honestly just do that.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have, if you have lots of streams and they're all going different places and stuff, then yeah, really we could have a whole talk about file descriptor handling in Bash, and I think everybody would fall asleep, including me.
You can redirect your 4 thing to 5 and then read from 5.
Yeah, all
and then
sorts of
output or, you know.
all sorts of fun stuff. Yeah. But honestly, I almost only ever find a use to create one more file descriptor and then use it as shorthand for a separate log.
Okay.
Did I miss something? Did set OVI go to nano?
Set -OVI told Bash to honor VI syntax if you hit the escape key. And one of them is :V, which stands for bring up my visual editor.
I see.
But your visual editor hasn't been set to VI.
But my visual editor was not VI. It was not Visual Interactive. It was Nano. Yes. Which, by the way, Andrew, VI stands for Visual Interactive.
Did not know that.
And VIM stands for Visual Interactive Minimal.
That was much improved.
I thought it was modern.
Yeah, VI
It was
improved.
originally.
VI modernized.
I thought it was VI improved.
Yeah.
It's definitely bigger than VI.
Well, because Vim was the first one to have syntax highlighting, and today VI is an alias for Vim.
No, it wasn't the first one to have syntax.
We don't count Emacs.
It's a great operating
can you
system.
put
Too
that on
bad
a file
it has a shitty
descriptor?
editor.
8 megabytes and constantly swapping.
You can't tell, we have a lot of
If
fun
8
around it.
megabytes makes your system swap.
What knowledge I
Back
have
then it
about
did.
Unix and Linux is pretty much gone, because I haven't used it for years.
Actually, that never happened back in the day because you didn't use the graphic. There was
Because there was no 8 meg.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Damn it.
became more like,
Yeah.
That's
Because
not
there was no graphics. Without graphics,
Yeah.
it's tiny.
hey, I think I know
My
where
son
the punch
definition
card reader,
tiny.
would that be more your speed?
No, thank you.
But try to run a REPL in VI.
I found some punch cards in my library the other day. Honest Injun punch cards.
that
from
doesn't surprise me.
1970s.
Yeah.
About this many.
I probably have some still around.
Did you say the 1870s, Steve?
When
I
did
used to have a stack about that tall.
When
for
did they
note
start
cards.
using punch
Well,
cards?
I lost them.
I had
60,
brought
probably
a whole bunch
early
home with
60s.
Vaseline
1860s.
back in the day, and I gave him a whole stack of them. to my
Oh,
mom.
well,
And she loved them for making groceries.
are you talking IBM punch cards?
When did your
Really
cards start
high
using
quality
punch
paper.
cards?
Cheap paper didn't work. You had a key punch
18,
machine
was
on
that
cartridge.
Yeah, besides they fit in
70s
your
or
shirt
80s?
Yeah, they fit the shirt pocket. Oh. Had a wet spring.
Had a wet dream?
Wet spring back in the 70s, and one guy at McLeod Gas got an award for having the idea to put the punch cards, which the
He
meter
died in
readers carried
1834.
literally. He got the idea if they put them in a microwave to dry them out, and they could feed them through the card reader.
Wow.
And yeah, he got like a couple $1,000 for that. Cause it saved a gajillion hours of, you know.
That's a really fine line.
And of course, back then, they didn't know about freeze drying them. That's a better way to do it,
Oh, it probably would be.
because a lot of times the heat can damage the material.
You want cold dry.
Well, the problem with microwaves is that it has a hot spot, and if that hot spot ends up in a place that isn't wet, it gets really hot really quick.
And
Yeah.
poof,
Yeah.
it damages the material. But no, back in the 70s, there was some big flood somewhere, and McDonnell Douglas out there at McAuto,
Oh, yeah.
you know, they were doing the freeze drying of truckloads of stuff at a time.
That's right.
I don't
But
know,
see,
it was a-
they had a freezer that ran
Have
down
fun.
around -40 or something,
Yeah.
-50.
I guess we're done with the presentation.
I think
Yes, sir.
so.
Vacuum